Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1632, written by benjtom, The Silent Emergency. I had just pulled into the parking lot of where I worked and was walking towards the building. It was like 3 in the afternoon, broad daylight. All of a sudden, I heard an ambulance's siren start sounding. Naturally, I looked down the road to try and see the ambulance. I saw it approaching and decided to watch it for a bit. It was quickly getting closer, and it was about to pass right by me. However, there was a large SUV waiting to turn out of the parking lot and onto the road, blocking a few meters of the road from my view. The ambulance passed behind the SUV, probably about 50 feet away from me at most, and I vividly remember the siren becoming completely silent in that instant. The ambulance had vanished entirely as it passed behind that SUV. I was so confused. The road did not have many cars on it at the time, and it was broad daylight. I did a triple take and made sure I didn't just miss it. I had a clear view of the road going both directions, and there was no more ambulance to be seen. No more sirens either. I walked up and down the road, trying to find it for a solid minute, but nope, it was gone. I was well rested, not on drugs, and I didn't have a history of hallucinations. It seems dismissible, but I was completely aware of what happened, and I can't explain it to this day. Case file 1632, The Silent Emergency. So multiverse site is where I'm leaning. There's also a space-time portal explanation, but you certainly hope it wasn't that, because those can take you anywhere, pretty much. What if it ported them a mile back or 10 miles back, and because of that, they missed their chance to save whoever they were rushing to save? I hope it isn't that. I mean, potentially they were pushed ahead, closer to their destination. That would be good, but there's no way to know. So in that case, I would prefer it just be multiverse site because there's no gambling involved. They're just in a different universe and well along their way at the normal speed. Normal rushing speed. Case file number 1633, written by Clean Shepherder, 4611. Goodbye, dream. I was around 15 years old, and I had a dream about my grandfather. Nothing that out of the ordinary or too specific. In the dream, I walked downstairs into my kitchen to see him sitting on a chair, as if he was patiently waiting for me. When I got downstairs, he was ecstatic to see me. He got up off the chair and said, "I have to go now." He gave me a massive hug, and we said goodbye to each other. I wasn't particularly friendly to him in the dream, a bit blunt and rude, let's say. I woke up and went on my phone for a bit. It was 4:58 a.m. I remember the time exactly. It just stuck with me. When I woke up again for school, I have never felt such guilt in my life, even after knowing it was just a dream. It was so bad that I almost picked up my phone to text him and apologize to him for being rude. However, when I got downstairs before going to school, I told both my parents about the dream granddad and how terrible I felt for being rude to such a nice person. They told me to stop being so silly and that was just a dream. Anyway, I went to school like any other day, but this dream was just in the back of my mind and just bothered me a bit throughout the day. Almost like a wave of negativity just wouldn't leave me that day. My dad picked me up from our school bus stop every day, and this day was the same. I got in the car and he sort of just sat there for a bit in silence. I didn't notice anything was up until he sort of just looked at me, and I looked back at him and he said, "Granddad died this morning." The dream didn't cross my mind as I had stopped thinking about it at this point. A few hours after I found out he died, it crossed my mind again. I reminded my parents of it, and they said to me that they had already told everyone about what I told them that morning to help them. My dad later told me that he had died between 4 and 5 a.m. that morning, almost exactly as I woke up from the dream. I was never a believer in this sort of crap before this, but from this experience, there is no other way to explain it than he, for whatever reason, came to say goodbye to me. Case notes are file 1633. Goodbye, dream. Did you know I have a second channel where I react to shows I've never seen before? Go check it out. Link is in the description. Now onto the notes. I find it curious that you wanted to text your granddad before you even realized that this was more than a dream, or at least before you consciously realized you were told. So deep down in your subconscious, you knew. And there was little seedlings of that truth feeding into your conscious mind and telling you, yeah, this was more than just a dream. Where does that come from? Is it just our subconscious picking up on those little pieces of information out in the ether? and decoding them and then somehow feeding them into our conscious mind? First in the dream form and then after when you're awake? There is no other way to say it or frame it other than instinctive. The other question about this is, why did he appear to you and only you? No one else reported. I mean, maybe he appeared to other people but they didn't want to say anything because they don't want to seem crazy. That's a possibility. But in the event that he really did just appear to you, why? Is there a limit to how many people, if you die and you're going to move on, whatever that means? Is there a limit to how many people you can appear to in dreams or whatever way? Is it a purely energy limit or is there some cosmic rule that is enforced? Interesting and slightly unsettling question, because who's imposing that limit? Case file number 1634, written by Mild or Wild 65. Names Japan and the military. I was 13, living on a United States military base at Misawa, Japan. This was 1978. The world was a lot smaller then. I'm in the base exchange, BX, basically a department store for the military. I hear my full name paged. I have a common first name, but my last name, not so much. The page requests that I go to the customer service desk for a phone call. I'm 13. I head straight to it. I get there, and after a moment, a woman behind the counter deigns to acknowledge my presence. I tell her I'm full name, here to take the phone call. She looks confused, then points over to a young guy in a Navy uniform and says, "But that's full name." I'm nonplussed and wait until he finishes the call. Before he can walk away, I ask if his name is really me. It is. I tell him it's mine too. We share a bemused moment during which we determine there is no relationship at all. I go back to my shopping, head to the checkout. On military bases, you have to show ID to prove you're eligible to shop. I show my dependent ID card to the older man, late 60s. He looks closely at it and then he says, "That's not a very common name." I agree, and then he says, "Do you know a Pearl last name?" Once again, I'm nonplussed and tell him that's my grandfather. Pearl being even way more uncommon as a man's name than my last name is. He then asks, "How is Crook doing these days?" Crook being a nickname of my granddad's due to a poorly healed broken arm. All I can do is say he's doing okay. Turns out that man went to high school together with my grandpa in a very, very small southern Illinois town. The whole thing, the sailor, grandpa's schoolmate, the unlikely remote location, just had me questioning reality for days. Now I know the Matrix glitched. How small was the town? Some 20 plus years later during a family reunion, my dad took me to his old school. The hallways were lined with alumni photos until about 1980 or so. Every single one of my dad's siblings were on that wall. Case answer file 6934. Names Japan and the military. Small world as the expression goes. Was it glitch or fate? In some way you had to meet this person. It seems like such a great coincidence that it would be weird to explain it away by coincidence, but then again, what does it change to meet someone with your own name who knew someone in your family? It's kind of interesting, but does it really affect anything? Maybe it's one of those dominoes that is falling far away, that had to tumble. We can't know why until we finally reach the piece that it knocks over in 20 years. And without knocking the first one over, it never would have happened. Something like that? Maybe. Or it's just a really weird and unlikely coincidence. I mean, they do happen sometimes. Still very interesting though. And now time for the quote of the day. Be ashamed to die until you've won some victory for humanity. Horace Mann. Well, I agree with the idea of this quote, but I would amend it or add details to say that mankind, you don't have to win a victory for all of mankind, but for those you care about, like your family. And I think a victory, one that everyone can accomplish, is having children and raising them to be good for the world, to have strong morals, to follow the golden rule, to care about other people and to take care of themselves. If you can raise a child into a well-adjusted adult, I mean, that's a grand victory indeed. Even if they don't go on to cure cancer, that's okay. Not everything in life is about the grand moments. In fact, most of life is about the small ones. So embrace those, and embrace those small victories that you have for men that you care about, and women. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.